It's a privilege sitting down with Jeff Booth, the author of the book Price of Tomorrow. Thank you for doing this, Jeff.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
We are meeting at the Oslo Freedom Forum. So just to kickstart the conversation, why is a medium of exchange that can't be controlled or manipulated so important as a base layer for a truly free and prosperous society?
It's a really interesting question. I don't think people have connected the dots to that, even here at the Oslo Freedom Forum. And so there, I think here, and even in the opening stage, they talked about democracy. And they said 4 billion people live in totalitarian states without democracy. What many people haven't connected the dots to yet is democracy fails under manipulated money and gives rise to dictators, because the only way to keep that going is through coercion. And so manipulated money or misinformation in money, people don't want more money. They want what they think more money will buy them. So if you introduce manipulation or misinformation in money as a byproduct, you have to have misinformation everywhere in society. And you know from my thesis in my book, technology frees our time. Technology is exponentially trying to give us more for less. And that has to be offset by an inflationary monetary policy that tries to go the other way, has to rob our time. But that robbing of our time through inflation is a transfer of wealth to the middle class and poor, to the wealthy or powerful. And that division, so inflation is the same as wage deflation. And that the division that creates in society, when society starts not being able to pay their bills because their food goes up so much and the housing goes up so much, creates a division in society that literally people will vote to give up their individual rights and freedoms to a dictator to be able to try to square the game. But if that dictator is built, if the dictator has control of money, then things never change. And so the connection to money is the connection to what we see in the world. I would just posit a question differently. If it wasn't about money, wouldn't we have already solved the dictator problem?
Yeah, that's a good take on it. You touched on it briefly, because during the last 30 years or so, we have witnessed unprecedented technological breakthroughs. But the average human being are still spending almost the same amount of time providing only for basic needs. Why aren't technology, as of now, enabling us to spend more time with our family and friends, making work easier? Where's the bottleneck?
The productivity gains from technology are being stolen through inflation and transferred to essentially government and the wealthiest or closest to the money printer. And I don't even know if most of those people know that that's true. It's factually true. So what would happen typically with productivity gains? Productivity gains would be transferred to society in the form of lower prices. But if you had lower prices, what would happen in a credit-based system that we live in, if prices were if you allowed deflation to happen, and the entire world economic system lives on a credit-based system, then the entire global economic system fails. You have a cascading unwind and a depression that wipes out every bank. So the people that go to the bank that think they have money in the bank and they realize it was somebody else's credit, the bank's closed and you have no money. And so that's door number one. And you can imagine no government on their watch is going to let door number one happen. Okay. Door number two is a higher rate of inflation and then hyperinflation as currencies fail. And it's going to happen at different times in different countries, but it has to, because governments have to essentially print more money into inflation to be able to keep the game going. And that has a different outcome, and that has a division of society outcome, eventually ending typically in war, a global conflict, until you reset what is money again under a hard money system. And this time that going through that reset, humanity's never gone through this reset of money when you've had 9 nuclear nations. And more countries trying to be nuclear nations for fear of getting taken over by one that isn't, or the one that is. And so you have this race for weapons of mass destruction against a tearing apart of the fabric of money, which is bound to be confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there's no way to solve it from the system, unfortunately.
No.
The system, so you only have door number 1 and door number 2. And both of those, door number 1 and door number 2, end in typically war. There is a potential option, but it's not really an option. You can consolidate all power in a few people, and you could live as a working slave forever.
Yeah.
Right. That if you said the World Economic Forum's idea of what this looks like, that's the idea. That's what they would have when they talk about the useless people. What they haven't, and I guess it's an idea. Let's just imagine World Economic Forum has the same idea as I do at the same time. Technology is so exponentially powerful, and we're moving into artificial general intelligence and robotics and things that we can't even imagine how productive that is, meaning we don't need as much human labor. So if you lived in a world where you were enriched by money printing, and that money printing was the source of your wealth or power, then you could easily have an idea that you were more important than all those other people that were hurt by that same money printing, and you're going to set the rules for everybody else. So that's what that idea looks like.
Yeah.
And my idea, and now Bitcoin, but is let the free market do its job.
Yeah.
Right? And the free market doing its job means prices keep falling. And you get a broad-based transfer of those technological gains to society.
Yeah, good. A lot of this comes down to education, and often when we speak about Bitcoin adoption, we often mention in the same sentence that education is key. How do we build a new financial system as long as millions of young economists graduates every year from schools around the globe preaching inflation, central banking, modern monetary theory as the building blocks for the future as well?
They'll be wrong, and you can see they're wrong today, because effectively we've had a test of modern monetary theory right now.
Yeah.
And it's ending in war, right? It's ending in war. It's ending in oil prices spiking. It's ending in food prices about to spike through the roof, and it's going to end in famine and a whole bunch of starvation. And that's what you get when you manipulate money. So we have a perfect experiment right now about what modern monetary theory would look like.
Yeah.
There is no free lunch, unfortunately. You can't, again, abundance in money equals scarcity everywhere else. Yeah. Scarcity in money equals abundance everywhere else. So, but going back to the question on how do we educate, it is, for people who are deep down this rabbit hole in Bitcoin, they understand what we're saying, and we're preaching to many people who really understand it, and they take that over. That's one leg of the stool, and we all make a difference one person at a time. And we never know what it is we say that then turns on a light somewhere else and then that person turns on 10 other lights. We never know when that happens. This podcast might do that. It might do it for one person, might do it for 100 people, and it might do it for 1,000 people. But and those people make a difference. But that's just one leg of the stool. If you tried to teach TCP/IP, the Internet Protocol, in 1995, you would find it similarly really difficult because people don't try to think through technology at that base level or what it means, and they can't see what's coming next. And they interact with technology through products that are built on top of TCP/IP that opened up the entrepreneurs on top of that were building Facebook, Google, iPhone, all of the different things that came on top of that layer. That open communication protocol were built on top, and we experienced the internet, TCP/IP, through the products. Yeah. That similar thing is now happening on Bitcoin, on Layer 2 and Taro, and a whole bunch of entrepreneurial talent that's about to build on top of this. And it's a very bright future. Because now you have a network effect happening on Bitcoin, and the more chaotic the existing system gets, the more people explore Bitcoin and say, wait, they were right all along as a store of value. You also have a network effect happening on Lightning that is a peer-to-peer transfer of money, and that network effect is growing so fast. Yeah. Those reinforce each other. Some people use it as a payment mechanism. Some people as a store of value. In a lot of third world countries, it's not a store of value first. It's a payment mechanism first. Right? And it doesn't matter which one came first. No. Because as you start to do it, you start to build stronger and stronger understanding of this network, again, through the products. And on top of that, there's a whole bunch of innovations coming that are just, they become wildly exciting. It's early, but that network effect just grows. And the true value of a network effect, and by the way, this is where Raoul Pal got it so wrong, right? Is a network effect. Every user makes the network stronger for every other user. It makes it better for every other user. And if a whole bunch of the altcoins, it works exactly the opposite. Every user makes the network weaker. And so Bitcoin is the only one I've seen that actually every user makes the network stronger for every other user. And that's a powerful thing. It's a hard thing to stop.
It's about planting seeds in a way. On what level do you think the governments or financial authorities understands Bitcoin? On what level?
I think very surface level. In most cases. In fact, I know I have friends right now at the World Economic Forum, and I won't say their names, but I'll say one couple that I'm quite close to. They don't know what we're talking about. Okay, even though we're friends and they know how deep I am in the space, it's hard for them to understand, and they're not devotees to this whole backroom plan of the World Economic Forum. They just go because it's a business and they meet other friends. But the level of understanding is really shallow in most of the world.
Should Bitcoiners spend more time lobbying policymakers and try to change and affect, or should we approach this from the cyberpunk ethos and heads down and build freedom software they can't touch anyway?
So I love both. And Bitcoiners should do whatever they want to do, right? And some are going to build incredible products on top of this, and they're going to create wealth by delivering value to society. And some of those products will bring on billions of people. Some people will be educators, and they'll bring on a whole bunch of people. Some people will just hold, and that'll make a difference. And I think every single person, some people will advocate policy, but if you think about what a government actually is, it's us, right? And we give the government way too much power because we think it's this big entity when it's just a whole bunch of people that make mistakes just like we all do. And if we spend more energy on Bitcoin, if we spend more energy not just holding, but maybe giving say, I'm going to give two businesses are the same business. One accepts Lightning, one doesn't. I'm going to pick the Lightning business, right? I'd actually probably pay more for the one that accepts Lightning and then I'll buy more Bitcoin on the back end, because holding for me now, it's not enough. I want to accelerate the network. I want to use my time well to be able to accelerate the network. As I started to get into that, that's not even enough. So I created a venture fund to be able to invest in the entrepreneurs building on top of on top of Bitcoin.
Cool. When as we speak, the financial markets are burning. It's a rampant inflation. We have a war going on in Europe. Yeah. When we hopefully meet again here next year, how do you think the world will look?
Oh, that's a tough one. So from my book, for anyone who hasn't listened to it, this is all perfectly predictable. You have technology deflation moving one way, and the only way to offset that is through massively more printing. So in the preceding 20 years of writing my book, there was $185 trillion of stimulus to produce $46 trillion of economic growth. And so that tells you the problem. You cannot do that forever without manipulating money. But you could also, why I talked about, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about what comes next, because technology is moving faster. And the more you push prices up, the more companies need to automate faster, because otherwise we wouldn't use their products, right? So you have two systems moving further and further away from each other, and you have a whole bunch of crazy people that want to protect the existing system at all costs, and that protection of protect their power base at all costs. And what typically happens through that is they need to create enemies at one group against the other. And once you can consolidate power in a country by creating one group against another, you have to create a greater enemy to stay elected. So if you see the geopolitical tensions rise around the world, it's a direct result of what we're talking about. China, US, and you can see it in the news. You can see it in all over. You can see preparations for global conflict, and that terrifies me. And there is a higher probability that happens than before we get to mass adoption on Bitcoin. Yeah. And why this is such an important topic is, if we want a world based on truth, hope, and a better future, then we need to accelerate Bitcoin as fast as we can. And to do that, we can't talk about Bitcoin as how much money we're going to make on Bitcoin. It's a new foundational layer for where the world's going. And it's a transition from a system that can't solve this problem to a system that can. When you talk when you talk like that, you can bring more people on.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jeff. Yeah. It was a pleasure talking to you. And
great. Thanks very much.
I hope we'll see each other next year, and the world is
in a better place,
better direction.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.